Hello guys, I'm Christopher from CMM with the camera sample video about the Elephone P8. So this is a very interesting phone because it boasts a pretty impressive camera equipment. We have a Sony IMX230 based camera on the rear with a resolution of 21 megapixels and an aperture of f2.2, and we have a front camera which is based on a Samsung S5K3P3, which operates at 16 megapixels resolution, is capable of recording 4K videos, and it has an f2.0 aperture. So how does the camera perform? Let's check that out, and we are going to start with some normal landscape shots. So this one is pretty complicated in terms of lighting. We have lots of dark areas, we have lots of bright areas, so it's very important for the camera to keep balance of that, which is called dynamic range, and it did a really good job with it. This picture has been taken in normal mode, not HDR mode, but it looks, well, stunning. We have a lot of detail, none of the areas is too dark, none of the areas is too bright, looks just very balanced and nice. Also, if we zoom in, the picture still looks great. Check this out, really good result. So the main camera is promising. Does it keep like that? Let's check out other samples. So this one has been taken at the beach with very bright sunlight. And as you can see, really good result again. Colors just do look nice, they do pop, but they are still natural. And we have a lot of detail, and that even applies to the edges of the picture. No unsharp edges or sides. Just looks very nice, and the amount of noise also is very low. Again, a very good result. This one, again, under good sunlight, and again we have great sharpness, lots of detail. Also the moving part of the picture, which is the water of the sea, looks really good and detailed. This one has been taken at home, and lighting conditions haven't been that good. There was almost no sunlight available, very bad weather. Yet the result does look surprisingly good. Again, we have acceptable colors, or pretty good colors actually. It looks pretty realistic, and not much noise, and a very decent amount of detail there across the whole picture. Really nothing to complain about there. Again, great result. This one is a very complicated picture. Sun was shining directly into the camera, and thus we needed to use HDR mode for this to get the darker areas of the picture visible. Because if you focus on the sky, you of course get a visible sky, but the buildings would be black in this case. On the other hand, if you focus on the buildings, you get a white overexposed sky, but you see the buildings, and with HDR mode you can get the best of both worlds, right? But the thing is, we have moving water inside this picture, which means that this might result in some ghosting or blurry picture when using HDR mode, because HDR pictures consist of 3 different images. And as you can see, it still came out surprisingly good. We have a bit of ghosting on this area here, but overall the picture does look very decent considering how complicated this lighting situation was. Next one, lots of seawater. Both of those pictures look just great. Again, great sharpness, good amount of detail, color looks realistic, and despite the movement of the water, it's totally sharp and detailed. Really good result. Then this one was a little complicated as well, because it was a windy day, so you can imagine this grass has been moving a lot. Yet it came out very sharp, and you see the colors do look really good on this one. Again, a very gorgeous picture. So as you can see, as far as landscape shots go, the Elephone P8 performs amazingly well. Next, let's check out some macro and close-up shots, because if it performs great with landscape shots, it should perform even better there. And well, it does. Look at this nice ice cream here. Again, a very detailed shot with very good colors. a pleasure to look at. Really nice result. We have some noise in the background, but not too much there. This flower came out amazing as well. Colors look just great. It's a bit more intense than in real life, but colors are not off. The shade is pretty much the same as in reality. And again, the amount of detail is just gorgeous. Then here again we have some complicated lighting situation, some darker areas and some very bright areas where the sun shines on. And it again came out really good. Dynamic range really is good on this one. And also again the amount of detail is just great. We also have a bit of a bokeh effect in the background, which looks nice. Really cool. This one here is a bit more complicated. It's a macro shot, but it's the same grass as captured as a landscape shot before, but as I told you, it has been moving a lot because it was very windy. Yet we again have a very sharp picture with a very decent amount of detail despite the movement. And I actually was very surprised that the phone managed to focus on this thing because it was very, very slim and tiny. Definitely wouldn't have expected the Elephone P8 to handle this picture that good. So really surprising. This one was moving as well, as you can tell by the flower leaves, very windy. But again, really good amount of detail. The honeybee is very detailed there. And yeah, great results again. Next, let's have a look at something more complicated, and that's low light photography. And let's start with the internal LED flash. The Elephone P8 has a dual LED flash consisting of two LEDs, of course, which have different colors. As you can see, it does a pretty good job getting the colors right, so they don't look washed out, but we have a bit of noise and less detail with those pictures. But what comes out surprisingly good are close-ups and macro shots with the LED flash. There is really no sign of overexposure, which is surprising. Great amount of detail, and the noise is almost not present. And this one came out really good as well. Some flower shot in total darkness with the LED flash. There was also some insect on there. It's not totally sharp when zooming in. There also is a bit of noise, but in general it does look good. Even on a large screen it does. So surprisingly decent result there. Next one, synthetic lighting in a train at night. There really wasn't too much light in there, but the camera did catch a lot of it, and the picture has a very decent quality. I mean, you can't complain about the detail there. Here you have a tiny bit of missing sharpness, but in general it's a decent and reasonable result. This picture on a train station at night came out really nice as well. It's a little bit unsharp here, but in general still an acceptable result and not too bad for a budget phone in my opinion. And this one came out surprisingly decent. So if you have a proper amount of synthetic light available, you can get really decent night shots with a great amount of detail. Look at that. That's really not bad at all. There are much more expensive phones that perform worse than this. So Elephone really did a great job there. This one has been taken yesterday at sunset. Sun was almost gone already, so it catched a surprisingly large amount of light. And again, we have a reasonable amount of details in there. Sharpness looks good, amount of noise is pretty low. Nothing to complain about there, really nice. Yeah, it even catched those birds here rather sharp, which is surprising. So exposure time isn't too long. Now this one has been taken with HDR mode and almost no light available. The only light source in this picture basically was the moon and this large candle here. And as you can see, it catched an impressive amount of light. And the amount of detail also is surprisingly high, and we again have surprisingly low amounts of noise in there. Pretty good result actually. And this one in low light as well, at total darkness, looks really decent too in my opinion. Again, really not much noise in there and a reasonable amount of detail. So it's not the best performing phone in terms of low light photography, but it definitely is one of the better devices, especially in the mid-range category. And now we are checking out front camera samples, and this one has been taken in the very same train as the pictures that I showed you in the very beginning. And well, it's not the best camera considering it's a 16 megapixel sensor, but it definitely is one of the better front cameras we can find in Elephone devices and in those cheaper smartphones from China in general. So considering the amount of light available, it catched an impressive amount of light, and the detail is reasonable considering that we are looking at the picture in a pretty large size right now. This is a 27-inch screen. So yeah, it looks pretty decent for a low light front camera picture. The Elephone P8 also has a front LED flash, but this isn't of much help. Looks like a ghost in the dark. Lots of noise and not much light. Yeah, really not usable. Then some sample at daylight comes out pretty good. We have some slightly blurred background, despite no autofocus being available on this front camera. But considering it's daylight, the amount of detail is a bit low there. As you can see when I zoom in, picture looks a bit mushy. The hair doesn't come out as detailed. The fabric of the clothing also not. Could be better, but it's not a total failure. It's definitely usable. It's still one of the better front cameras, but not comparable to something like on the Echo phone. For example, the Echo Le Pro 3 or something like that. Then another daylight sample, and here the same reasonable picture quality, but the amount of detail just isn't there. And here comes the last part of this camera sample, and that's video recording. As I said in the beginning, both cameras are capable of recording 4K videos, and especially for front cameras, that's something you don't see that often. If you ask me which other phones support 4K video recording, I can't answer you that question. There for sure is some phone out there which does support this, but I don't know of anyone, any phone. So it definitely is something very rare, and thus an outstanding feature of the Elephone P8. So let's check out how 4K videos recorded on the front camera look like. So as you can see, this is a low light sample, but quality definitely is reasonable. It looks actually better than the selfie pictures taken with the front camera. And there is a surprisingly low amount of noise in there, but what stands out to me is that the picture looks kind of reddish. Just look at the skin tone. This doesn't look natural. I'm not red like this. So it definitely has some issues with the color tones. But in general, footage looks good, and with some optimization, it can look really, really decent in my opinion. So next, let's have a look at some samples recorded with the main camera in 4K. And it doesn't perform bad, I tell you that, but it has some issues, and I'm going to show you some of those issues. So first is colors. As you can see, they look way too intense. This doesn't look realistic. It really doesn't a good job with colors, so they definitely need to improve this. But what you can see as well is that it does show fractals. The picture just isn't as sharp as it should be, not as detailed as it should be, and especially with fast movements like here, the flowers and that stuff, it just gets a little mushy because of the fractals. So they should probably increase bitrate a little bit. What stood out to me as well is that the camera has some issues with stuttering in the footage. Most of the time it is smooth, but sometimes it just has those hiccups where the picture stutters a bit, and that's just disappointing. So potential is there, audio quality is good, but they definitely need to improve colors, and they need to improve the issue with the fractals. So let's just play some of those samples in full resolution so you can judge yourself about the real quality.
Meine Damen und Herren, wir erreichen jetzt Würzburg, der Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts. Unser Zug hat hier Aufenthalt bis 7:29 Uhr.
So groß.
So that's it for the camera sample of the Elephone P8. As you've been able to see, it has a pretty good camera, some weaknesses here and there, but in general it's a really good camera with tons of potential for future improvement. So I'm really looking forward to see what they are doing with OTA updates. But in general they don't have done anything significantly bad there. So if you want to learn more about the Elephone P8, stay tuned for the full review, which is coming next week or so. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed this video and see you soon. Bye bye.